Alright guys, this is potentially big news. Peter Parker, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, could be leaving the MCU if Marvel and Sony can't reach a deal. Now, it was reported earlier that this was a done deal, that Tom Holland would be leaving the MCU after, I think he's got 2 more movies, and now the blogs are sort of backpedaling and being like, no, there's a catch. If Marvel and Sony can work it out, maybe we'll keep Spider-Man around. And yeah, so this just sort of dropped this afternoon, and we're going to take a look at this and see what everybody's saying about it. Very interesting situation. I kind of wondered, given the special arrangement that Sony and Marvel have regarding kind of joint custody of Spider-Man, if something like this wasn't bound to happen sooner or later, especially since Sony has had some success with Spider-Man movies on their own, with the multiverse movie, with Venom. Yeah, so this will be very interesting to watch. So before we get into the video, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants here at Clownfish TV. We passed 50,000 subs last week. We're hoping to hit 50,000 more, 100,000 by the end of the year. I don't know if it's possible, but we're going to try. Thank you so much for your support. All right, so this version of the story coming from IGN, I've got a couple other articles pulled up too. Spider-Man out of the MCU if Marvel and Sony can't reach a deal. Update. Kevin Feige out as Spider producer. So Spider-Man's future in the MCU remains unclear due to a series of reports detailing a breakdown of negotiations between Sony and Disney Marvel. Deadline first reported that Marvel will not produce any further Spider-Man films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe due to an inability between Sony Pictures and Disney to reach new terms that would have given Disney a co-financing stake moving forward. Later, Variety made Spider-Man's fate seem a bit murkier, reporting that Sony and Marvel have reached an impasse in negotiations, but that a source indicates a deal might still be reached between Sony and Disney. One source has informed IGN that negotiations are ongoing. Meanwhile, a separate source tells IGN that Deadline's initial report is accurate. So, wow, okay, so the specifics of the deal, we'll talk a little bit about that later. But, you know, the Spider-Man situation is very unique in the MCU. There was a lot of acrobatics, I guess, involved in getting Spider-Man into the MCU because Sony has had the Spider-Man rights for, like, ever. And, you know, Sony really had nothing to lose because the Amazing Spider-Man reboot did not do well. And, you know, under the MCU, Tom Holland's Spider-Man has become a lot of people's favorites. He's been incredibly popular. You know, the last movie with Tom Holland's Spider-Man did very, very well. And Sony has to be looking at this like, why are we sharing? You know, why are we sharing? But the flip side is the reason that Spider-Man, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, is so popular is because he has ties to the Avengers. That the Avengers movies basically advertise the Spider-Man movies. So, you know, I don't know what their plan is, if they're going to actually reboot Spider-Man again for like the 3rd or 4th time, or if they'll continue on with Tom Holland and just not mention the rest of the MCU, which would be very, very weird. But here we go. A dispute at the top levels of both companies has essentially resulted in Feige being nixed from future Spider-Man projects if the two sides can't strike a deal, according to Deadline's original report. Disney has asked for a 50-50 co-financing agreement between the two studios on future Spider-Man films. Again, according to Deadline sources, Sony turned down that offer. Sony proposed keeping the arrangement similar to the terms that dictated the first 2 Spider-Man MCU films, such that Disney would only receive 5% of first dollar gross. Disney reportedly refused that deal. If the two parties don't return to the negotiating table, Tom Holland's Spider-Man would not be expected to appear in any further MCU movies, and presumably Sony's future Spider-Man movies would not be able to mention Iron Man, Thanos, or any storylines relating to the MCU. So that's very limiting considering how dependent on the Avengers this version of Spider-Man has been. He's basically a junior Avenger. You know, whereas, you know, the 2 previous incarnations of Spider-Man, you know, he definitely stood on his own. He was like the only superhero in that universe that we were aware of. Of course, Deadline's report could be a purposeful leak intended to rile up Marvel fans and force the 2 companies back to the bargaining table, given how beloved and seemingly integral Holland's iteration of Spider-Man is in the MCU. Yeah, Spider-Man was kind of poised to become the face of the MCU with Tony Stark out of the way. With Iron Man out of the way, Spider-Man was poised to become the face of the MCU, but the problem is Disney doesn't have all the rights to Spider-Man. So, what are they going to do? Buy Sony? I mean, who knows? Who knows what they're going to do? Or buy them out, buy Spider-Man for billions of dollars? And of course, this is all about money, because Far From Home made a ton of money. And he's about the only bankable character they have left. You know, maybe Doctor Strange. There's already been backlash against the next Thor movie. You know, we don't really know where the MCU is going to go, but Spider-Man's a pretty safe bet. People really like Tom Holland. And, you know, if they kick him out of the MCU, I don't think that's gonna play well. First dollar gross is a practice in filmmaking financing that means a participant earns a percentage of the film's box office revenue on the first day of release. Stars like Leonardo DiCaprio used this practice on Inception, making more than double his usual rate as an actor because of the film's unexpected success. Deadline sources say that Disney CEO Bob Iger had spent the past several months attempting to broker a new agreement for continued Marvel and Sony partnerships. Deadline sources also say that Sony has reasoned that the studio will manage on without Feige. So this is interesting. So yeah, Far From Home, we're going to talk about this and how much money it made. It made a ton of money. And Disney's building a Spider-Man ride in California. In Disneyland, in California Adventure, they're doing a Marvel section, a Marvel mini land within California Adventure, and they're actually building a Spider-Man ride. So if this breaks down, I don't know what that's going to mean for those sorts of things. You know, it sounds to me like this could potentially break down. And I think Sony's probably like, you know, obviously Disney wants a bigger cut, but Sony's probably like, we don't need you anymore, Disney. We've got, you know, I guess we could go back to Andrew Garfield. I don't think that's going to do well, but yeah, they did very well with Into the Spider-Verse. Venom did much better than expected. You know, Spider-Man has seen a resurgence in popularity, but it could be argued that the reason Spider-Man is popular again is because of Tom Holland and its connection now, Spider-Man's connection to the MCU. If Spider-Man was not part of the MCU and they just rebooted Spider-Man again, I don't know how it would go. I really don't know how it would go. It's easy to see why Sony might play hardball with Spider-Man. Spider-Man Far From Home became Sony's highest grossing film ever in August, reaching over $1 billion in global box office revenue, beating its previous record holder, the James Bond 2012 film Skyfall. This is also potentially why Marvel Studios declined to announce a new Spider-Man film at San Diego Comic-Con 2019. Sony still holds the screen rights to Spider-Man solo films, and is also the distributor going all the way back to Sam Raimi's 2002 Spider-Man. Marvel, however, owns all the merchandising rights to Spider-Man. Sounds like a very uncomfortable alliance here. Deadline sources state the 2 additional Spider-Man movies are in the works, and that the actor Tom Holland and Homecoming and Far From Home director John Watts will still be participating. Producer Amy Pascal, who has worked on every Spider-Man film universe entry since Homecoming, including Venom and the Spider-Verse, will also stay on. Meanwhile, Disney completed its acquisition of 21st Century Fox in May, yada yada. So it is worth noting, and this is what we talked about, that Sony Pictures' 2018 Venom movie managed to gross over $800 million worldwide, and the announced sequel will be directed by Andy Serkis. An interesting detail revealed in the Deadline story is that Feige apparently lent an unofficial hand in the development of Venom. So, yeah, I think this is basically a case of Sony being like, you know, we don't want to share. We don't want to share, and Disney wanting a bigger cut. I mean, obviously, Disney would like to own the rights to Spider-Man lock, stock, and barrel, like they're going to with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, and Spider-Man has been set up to be the face of the MCU. He's really like the only character a lot of people care about going forward. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. Or, you know, if they get rid of Tom Holland from the MCU, if they get rid of his version of Spider-Man, are they going to kill Peter Parker like they did in the Ultimate comic? Are they going to kill him off? You know, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, but it seems like Spider-Man might be living on borrowed time, because I can't see, given that Sony and Disney are technically rivals, and there's a lot of money at stake, I mean, billions of dollars at stake, I think, you know, this might not end well. I think it might not end well. And, you know, from my point of view, basically Sony used the momentum of the MCU to relaunch Spider-Man, and renew interest in the Spider-Man franchise. And now Disney is going to be left with a bunch of second-rate, third-rate characters that nobody cares about as the MCU rolls into Phase 4 until Phase 5 comes along, and then hopefully they bring back the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. I don't know. Very interesting. I'm not surprised. I wondered how long this would last. I just don't know what the outcome is going to be. Nobody seems to know what the outcome is going to be. But money talks. Money talks. Maybe Disney will just, cut them a check and be like, we want all the Spider-Man characters back. How much? How much? But given that Disney's got some financial problems right now, they might not be able to do that. So we'll keep an eye on this situation. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants here on Clownfish TV. This has been Neon, and we will talk later. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.